Okay, guys. Today let's see about scenario-based questions. Okay, so what are all the scenario-based questions they may ask in interview and how we could answer. So in case if someone is asking some scenario-based question, so we have to answer it in a step-by-step manner. Like what are all the steps we take to address the issue. Okay, so today let's see some scenario-based questions. Okay, so for example, if an interviewer is asking something related to performance issue. Okay, performance issue of Kubernetes cluster. So what is performance issue? It may be like slowness or else the end user is not able to access the application which is deployed. Okay. So what you should check. So first step is to check the health status. Okay. So how would you check? So in case if you are checking performance, like it will be mainly with respect to nodes, like whether there is like high CPU utilization or something, right? So what you have to do? First you have to run kubectl get nodes. Okay, so and all the nodes should be in ready state. Okay, for some nodes may be in pending state or else it is like crashed or whatever it is. Then actually the issue might be due to that or no. Okay, so first you have to check nodes. Okay, so once nodes is fine, then you have to check pods. Okay, and then in Kubernetes cluster we will have multiple namespaces, right? So in case if you have to check particularly to particular namespace, then you have to give each and every time the namespace. So in case if you have to check the parts in the entire cluster, you have to give hyphen all hyphen namespaces. Okay, so that it will list all the parts. And in case if any of the parts are in pending or crash loopback or in any of the error states, then you can find out that issue. Okay, so you can check like in pending crash loopback or out of memory killed. Okay, so once you check these nodes and parts, then you have to check the resource utilization, because resource utilization is always linked with performance. Okay, because like we have to check kubectl top nodes. Okay, we have to check like CPU and memory usage, and then first you check for nodes and then you have to check for parts. Okay, parts hyphen all namespaces. Okay, and then you have to investigate. To investigate, you have to use kubectl describe part and kubectl logs. Okay, then once you have done all these three steps, then you have to go for networking. Okay, so networking is mainly taken care by services in Kubernetes. Okay, so you have to get kubectl get services and then PVC. In case if there is some issue with some storage, then you have to check the PVC. So like also then once that is done, then you have to check the control plane health. Okay, so you can use a kubectl get component status or using this. This is like endpoint. Okay, so it will check for this endpoint. Once everything is done, in case okay, if you want to check kubelet logs. Okay, what is kubelet? Kubelet is for maintaining the nodes. Okay, so in case if you have to check logs of this kubelet, then you have to use journalctl. Okay, journalctl hyphen u kubelet, and then for checking the file you have to use hyphen f. Okay, so these things. So what are the first step? First you have to check the node pod, and then you have to check the resources like node resource and part resource. Then you have to check the logs. Okay, how you check the logs? You using kubectl describe and kubectl logs. And then you have to check the networking is taken care by service, so you have to do kubectl get service. And then you have to check the storage. To check the storage, kubectl get PVC. So when you do kubectl get PVC, it will list the all the available PVCs. In case if anything is not bound, then maybe issue may be related to that one as well. Then you have to verify. Okay, then you have to check the control plane health. Okay, so you can use kubectl get component status, and then to check the node and system logs. So mainly for kubelet logs, you have to use journalctl-u kubelet-f. Okay, so using this one, in case of performance issue, you have to do this as the step-by-step procedure. Okay, so you guys can note it down in any of the page or in any of the notebook, so that whenever they tell about performance, these are the steps you have to follow. Okay, so next, okay, node issue. For example, you are seeing some node issue in Kubernetes. Okay, so then what are the steps you have to do? As we discussed here, similar steps. Okay, when we check of nodes, you have to use kubectl get nodes, and then you have to do kubectl describe node. So here you will get to know the overall status, like looks for taints, disk pressure, memory pressure. What is disk pressure and memory pressure? In case if we have like 100%, the disk may be like utilizing like 97%, 98%, or else if you have memory, it may be in the peak consumption of memory, and there may be high in outs in the network. So due to this the all these issues will be listed out when you do kubectl describe node. Okay, in case if everything is fine, then you can go for top. Okay, so top command can be used to check CPU and memory. Okay, So if you see, we have used same thing here, right? So no matter which scenario they ask, this will be the steps, okay? So then again, you have to check kubelet logs, okay? Kubelet, so check the kubelet, you have to use systemctl status kubelet-l or generalctl. The same generalctl we have seen here, right? Generalctl-u, kubelet-f, okay? And then like restart node in case, so if everything is fine, then you can try to restart node, okay? Like this is not recommended, but you can restart. Before you restart, there will be certain steps, like you have to drain the nodes, and you have to make those parts available in some other node, because if some application is just deployed in one of the nodes, and if that node is restarted, then there may be an impact, okay? So in case if you are doing it in production, then you have to drain the node, and then you have to restart the node, okay? To restart node, you have to use systemctl restart kubelet, okay? When you restart this kubelet, automatically node will be restarted. And then in case if you want to restart, like if your containerization system is docker or containerd, you have to use systemctl restart docker to restart this runtime environment as well, okay? And then you can just check the network connectivity. So how to check network connectivity? So here what we checked here, we are checking the performance issue, right? So performance issue means like the application is working, just it is like slow, okay? But here node issue means nothing is working, okay? When nothing is working, you have to ping the master node IP, okay? You have to check master node IP, and then you have to do kubectl get parts hyphen a o wide, okay? When by doing this one, you will get the IP address, okay? So then you can check those things, okay? Then okay, next is docker build issue. So in case if you are seeing some build issue in docker, then you have to check docker file, okay? For example, if there are any syntax errors, so we are using from, run, copy, cmd, everything, right? So all these instructions should be in capital letters. In case if by mistake, if due to any of the editors, if it is in small letter or something, then you may see that issue, okay? So you can try running each command manually. So in case if certain commands are not working in docker file, you can try to run them separately and check whether it is working fine, okay? And then you have to check the logs for errors, okay? So you can run kubectl like docker build -t. So when you run this one, you will get the image, and you can check what is the error in output, okay? So based on that error, you can identify, because it will be um, giving the output like line number 5 is having some issue or something, okay? So based on that, you can fix issue. So we are discussing about a build, okay? When we are building this docker image, we are facing this issue, okay? So only we are trying this docker build and all, okay? And then we have to ensure dependencies, okay? For example, in case if you are using some python application, we need requirements.txt, okay? In case if you are using some node.js, then we need package.json, okay? What are these are like dependencies. So we have to check whether these dependencies are there or not, okay? In case if it is not there, then we have to make sure it exists, okay? And then in case if you have to inspect any of the content, you have to run docker content inspect, okay? So it will ensure like docker content is used properly. And we have to check docker daemon, okay? What is docker daemon? So systemctl status docker, when we run this one, it will be showing whether it is running or stopped. So that is the daemon. It is one of the core components of docker, okay? So we have to make sure that docker daemon is running. In case if docker daemon is not running, and no matter what commands you run, it will fail, okay? And then you have to check the network issues, okay? If it is in case when you do docker pull ubuntu, in case if it is giving some error or something, then maybe there is some network issue or some other thing, then you have to check those things, okay? So in case of docker build issue, you have to check whether the commands used are correct, and then you have to check the logs, and then you have to ensure dependencies based on the application. In case of python, requirements.txt. In case of node.js, package.json are existing, okay? And then you have to check docker daemon is running, and then in case if there is some pull issues or something, you have to check the network issues. Also in case sometimes if there are some credential issues, then also pull will not work. So what you have to do, you have to try to pull it locally, and if it works, then you have to check it in the system, okay? So let's assume we have a Terraform deploy issue. Okay. So in case you're trying to deploy something and you are seeing some issue. So what are the things you have to validate? So first you have to use Terraform validate. Okay. This will ensure like syntax is correct. Terraform syntax is correct, and then Terraform format. So for example, if you have not formatted it properly, when you write Terraform FMT, it will format in a structured manner. Okay. And then we have to do check plan output. Okay, so when you do Terraform plan, it will give what are all the components that is going to be created. Okay, so it will, in case of any errors, then it will show it here, then you can fix it. Okay, and then check Terraform state. Okay, so we have to check like Terraform state fields. In case if you have to see all the state fields, we can do Terraform state list. Okay, and then in case if there are some additional components in the infra, we can do Terraform refresh, so the state file will be refreshed. And then you have to check whether the provider authentication permissions are proper. In case for example, we are running AWS or Google Cloud or whichever cloud, we have to check whether the AWS resource have proper permission to create the resource. For example, you have created a AWS resource with certain permissions, but we have to create a VPC, but the user has only VPC read access, he doesn't have write access, then how it will create? Okay, so you have to ensure like it has the proper permission. Okay, so AWS STS. So this is like nothing but like IAM rules. Okay, so you have to check properly like whether everything is fine. And then in Terraform, in case if you have to check logs, you have to use TF Terraform log. Okay, and then you can use equal to debug. Okay, when you give debug, it will just give the error in case of any logs or something is required. Okay, Docker permission issue. Okay, so in case if Docker performance issue. Okay, so for example, you are running Docker and there is some performance issue. So what you have to check? So you have to check running containers and resource usage. So when there is performance issue, always you have to check the application is running or not, and then what is the resource usage. So in case in Docker, how we can check? To check the container is running or not, we have to use Docker PS. Okay, and then to check the high CPU and memory usages, you have to use Docker stats. Okay, in Docker stats, it will give how is the CPU and memory usage. And then like disk usage, like normally we know in Linux it is like DF, right? Same like you have to use Docker system DF. Okay, to check the disk space. And then in case if you have to remove any unused images, for example, we will be building images, right? In case if there are more number of images, it might have occupied lots of disk space, right? In case if you want to remove those unused images, you can use Docker system prune -a. So how we will get to know these are used or unused? Because when we run Docker containers, we will be using certain images, right? In case if it is using that image, it will avoid that one. In case if it is not used, it will remove these things. Okay, and then you can check the storage driver. Okay, so for example, in case if you have attached any of the networks to any of the storage, and in case whether it is properly connected or not, so those things can be checked using Docker info and the grep storage driver. And network performance. Okay, like your like when the performance is there, there are certain scenarios where issue may be due to some network issue also. Okay, so how do you inspect the network issue in Docker? Using Docker network ls. Okay, so it will list the available networks, and then to inspect, you have to use Docker network inspect and then network name. Like when you do ls, you will get the list of networks. So based on which is attached to particular Docker environment, you can just give the name. Okay, so that it will run. And finally, you can restart Docker service. Okay, system still restart Docker. So in case if none of the above steps works, you can use system still restart Docker to restart the Docker service. Okay, and then Terraform performance issue. Okay, previously we have seen about deploy issue. For deploy, we have to validate format plan, and then we have to check state files, and then you have to check the permissions. Okay, now Terraform performance issue. So for example, in case if we are creating like hundreds of resources. Okay, so when we create hundreds of resources, there may be like one resource may be dependent on the other. Okay, but in case if there is no dependency between resources, they can create like they can run parallelly, right? So that even time will be saved and all. So how we can do that one? We have to use Terraform plan hyphen parallelism equal to 10. So what it does, it will run parallelly multiple tasks. Okay, in case if there are no dependencies, it will try to create multiple resources at a time. Okay, and then we have to optimize the state management. So instead of using same state file for different environments, we can use separate state files. Like we can create separate state file for dev, staging, and prod, so that it will like it will be light. Otherwise, it will become too large in case if you are using single state file. Also, we have to use a remote backend to store these state files. Okay, and then improve modules and resource dependencies. Okay, so in case if particular resource is dependent on another one, we have to use depends on. Okay, in case if we are not using this one, the component may be simply running, and it will not be providing any service, and we may see the performance issues. Okay, and we have to check the limits as well, like infrastructure limits. For example, we will be setting these quotas and all, right, for resources. So we have to check those quotas, like whether it is properly configured or not, because in case if there is some limits, and if we configure Terraform file with higher configurations, then also it may fail. Okay, and then to enable debugging, tf log equal to debug. So okay, here they were using trace. So in case if you want to get more logs, you can use debug, or else you can use trace. Okay, and then part stuck in pending state. When parts are stuck in pending state, we know. Okay, so we have to check, first get the parts, and then we have to describe, and then we have to check the nodes, and then we have to check the logs of that service. And in case if there is some storage or network issue, we have to use kubectl get pvc and svc. And Kubernetes service not accessible. So application is deployed and everything is okay, but it is not accessible. So when the service is not accessible, we have to obviously check service. Okay, first you have to get all the services using kubectl get svc -a. So it will list all the services, and you have to check the endpoint. Endpoint is nothing but using the URL which we access that application, right? We have to check whether that is properly configured. Okay, so in case if that particular endpoint is not there, and if you try to access, obviously it will not work. Okay, so how we check the endpoint? Kubectl get endpoint and then service name. Which service we are using, that service name, and then namespace. Okay, so that it will show whether the endpoint exists or not. Okay, and then we have to check the connectivity of pod. Okay, what you have to do in case if you have to connect to pods, we have to exec into that, and then you have to curl the service. Okay, kubectl exec IT, and then pod name. Okay, whichever pod this application is running, you give the pod name, and then curl is for checking the services. Okay, in case if you have to query something, you can use curl. Okay, here you can give service name and port. In case if it is success, then connectivity is fine. In case if it is not successful, maybe some other issue might be blocking this one. Okay, and then you have to check the network policies. So to check the network policies and firewall, you can use kubectl get network policy -a, or else in case if there is some firewall blockage, you can check with the security team, like to allow those firewalls. Okay, and then Kubernetes Ingress not working. So what is Ingress? Ingress is used for handling the incoming traffic. Okay, so Ingress is not working. So in case if Ingress is not working, you have to use kubectl get ingress -a. Okay, so for Ingress, normally we can use Nginx, or else in case of third party, we can use some other components. Okay, so what you have to use, kubectl get ingress -a. It will ensure like Ingress is existing, and then you can describe. So in Kubernetes, whatever issue is there, you have to first get the service, and then you have to do describe, and then you have to check the logs. Okay, so here also, in case of ingress issue, you just get kubectl you get ingress, it will list all the ingresses, and then you describe the ingress name and namespace. Okay, and then verify ingress controller is running or not. So in case to verify this one, ingress, it will be running in one of the parts, right? So how you can verify? You can verify using kubectl get parts -a grep ingress. Okay, so that it will list all the parts, and it will grep for ingress pod. Okay, and then you have to check the DNS resolution. So to check DNS, we have the tool called ns lookup. Okay, and you type ns lookup, and then if you give the ingress host id, it will check, it will give the domain name and ip address, like whether it is properly connected or not. Okay, and then in case if there is some secret, like certificate issue or secret issue, you can get using kubectl get secrets -a. Okay, and then CI/CD pipeline failure in Jenkins. In case if a CI/CD pipeline fails, the first thing we have to see is console output. Okay, we have to go to that job, and then we have to click on the console output, and we have to check. So most probably we'll get to know what is the issue in that. Okay, also in case there are also scenarios like where there may be a agent failure, or else agent not assigned. For example, like in case if we have multiple clusters and things, nodes will be running using Docker, or else you may have separate nodes for different programmings. So what you have to check, you have to just check parts and grep Jenkins. Okay, so whether Jenkins is running or not. In case if it is, if Jenkins is running in Kubernetes, then you have to check using parts. Okay, and then you have to check systemctl status Jenkins, whether it is running or not. And then you have to check whether SCM webhooks and credentials are properly configured, and then restart the Jenkins. To restart the Jenkins, you have to use systemctl restart Jenkins. Okay, so first thing is check console output, and then in case if it is running in Kubernetes, kubectl get parts -a, and then check whether the part is running or not. And you can use systemctl status Jenkins. And in case if it is running on, in case if it is running on Linux server, you have to use systemctl status Jenkins. In case if it is not running, systemctl start Jenkins or systemctl restart Jenkins. Okay, so that Jenkins will be started. Also, we have to check whether the webhooks, for example, in case if you have to trigger any of the other components like SonarQube or something, we have to configure the webhooks, right? So we have to check whether that webhooks are configured properly to trigger other tasks. Okay. So AWS EC2 instance is not accessible. For example, you have deployed an EC2 instance and it is not accessible. So what you have to check? You have to ensure that instance is running. Okay. So to ensure the instance is running, you have to use AWS EC2 describe instance. Otherwise, you can go to the console and check whether the instance is running. Okay. And then you have to verify SSH connectivity. To SSH, we have to give SSH-key PEM, and then EC2 whatever user you are using, user into instance IP, so that you can confirm that PEM key which we use is correct. And then you have to check like security groups and the NACLs are allowed. In case if it is not accessible, maybe security might have been blocked. And then in case if required, you have to restart the instance. And then AWS S3 bucket access denied. Okay, in case if S3 bucket access is denied, then most probably it will be like IAM issue, because we will be giving access only for certain users. So in case if they don't have, we have to check IAM permissions. Okay, so AWS S3 LS, it will list all the buckets, and then if you give the bucket URL, it will show if access denied. We have to check IAM role, or else we have to check the bucket policy. We can define the policies, right? We will be defining the policies. So just we have to check whether it proper policy is assigned. And in case if it is like normally by default public access will be blocked, right? We have to check whether it is blocked or not. And then in case if it is encrypted, we have to check that we have proper permission to decrypt it. And then next issue is high load on Kubernetes API server. So API server is the one which handles all the input requests. Like in case if you have to communicate with the Kubernetes cluster, we will be communicating with the API server, right? So in case if we have high load on it, how we can manage that one? Okay, so we have to check the API server metrics. Okay, so API server, it will have the metrics. Metrics are nothing but details of that server. Okay, so we can use kubectl get -raw metrics. Okay, it will give the amount of like a list of metrics that are monitored. So based on that, we can check. Okay, and we can check high usage workload. Like we can use kubectl top parts -a, so that we can check which part is using more memory or CPU, and then restart API server. In case if it is not resolvable, we have to restart the API server. Okay, also like in case if you have a high load and it is like continuously it is with high load, and in case if it is like proper load, then you have to increase number of API servers as well. Okay, because in case if we have like 2 or 3 API servers and if it is continuously at 80% and 90% utilization, then obviously you can think of increasing the capacity of that API server as well. Okay, and next issue like is Docker container exiting immediately. Okay, you are running an image, but immediately the container which is created is exiting. Okay, so in case if it is like continuously exiting, then you have to check container logs. Okay, you have to check container logs using Docker logs and then container ID. Okay, so it will give the errors, and then exit code. Okay, in case if you are getting some exit code, you can do Docker inspect and then container ID, and then you can check that exit code based on whether it is having some issue or not. And then in case if you have to debug, you can exec into that particular image, and then you can check. And then other thing is like you can restart the Docker, so that you will get to know like what is the exact issue. And Kubernetes PVC, okay, PVC is like a persistent volume claim. So it is stuck in the pending state. Okay, so in case if it is stuck in the pending state, you have to get PVC-A, so that it will list all the PVCs, and you can check for which PVC is pending. Okay, and then you can describe kubectl describe PVC and PVC name, so that it will give the errors and events in case if there are any, so that based on that you can check what is the issue. And next thing is you have to verify the storage class. So when you do kubectl get SC is nothing but storage class. It ensures like correct storage class is existing or not. And then you have to check disk space. Okay, in node disk space. To check the disk space in node, you have to use df-h. Okay. Also you have to check whether proper PVCs are created. So anyway, PVs it will be like created using the storage class only. Okay. So in case of PVC, you have to check PVC status, and then you have to describe it. So when you describe, you will get to know whether it is bound or unbound or some other issue. So based on that, you can troubleshoot, and also you can check the storage class. Okay. Whenever someone mentions about PVCs, it will be obviously related to storage class, because using storage class we create all these PVCs. Okay. And then you have to check the node disk space, whether the node which is running is having proper access. Okay. So these are all the main scenario based questions. So whenever they ask any questions, so you can answer based on these steps. Okay.